Good evening and welcome to a regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. It is the evening of December 15th, 2020. It's the second Tuesday, which is a regular meeting night for us, 6 p.m., and I'd like to call the meeting to order at this time. We'll start our meeting tonight. I'd like to invite you to stand and join us in an invocation led by our very own Chaplain David Lura. From the Navy League, chaplain of the Navy League, and I will follow that then with the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, Chaplain Lura.
Greetings all. It's an honor to be here. Can you hear me first of all? Thumbs up from Beth.
Yep, we can.
It has been my practice to share a prayer in the form of something seasonal. So would you pause with me as I pray? Deck the streets of old Oak Harbor, holy and almighty Lord. It's been a year we could not have imagined. We pray that normal may soon be restored. Bless these halls and those who work here. Give them hope and grace and peace to make decisions with great insight, that our fears may one day cease. Help us all to work together to make this city strong and tall. Give this mayor and this council the support they need, serving one and all. Give your people who live and work here courage, strength, and peace and joy. May the children, both raised and schooled here, feel your love this Christmas, every girl and boy. As we come to the end of this pandemic year, we need an extra portion of peace of mind. We ask that you would abundantly bless us in the days ahead for a sense of normal grind. So in this spirit of the season, as this meeting has begun, we recall the words of Dickens' Tiny Tim that God would bless us, everyone. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Due to COVID-19, there is no physical meeting location per Washington Proclamation 20-28. Tonight's meeting may be viewed live via YouTube and replayed on cable channel 10. In addition, the public may call 623-404-9000 and enter the meeting ID number, which is 149-766-1467 to listen to the meeting live, and this is for audio only. Council members and city staff are participating via teleconference. The staff sitting in council chambers are all physically distanced at least 6 feet apart and will be wearing masks when they are not speaking. I want to thank the public, thank City Council, and thanks staff for working with us as we continue to follow these requirements. Please remember to wear masks and maintain physical distance in public spaces. And then we'll move to a roll call with our city clerk, Julie Lindsay, doing the roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Munns,
Present.
Councilmember Heisen,
Present.
Councilmember Servadius,
Present.
Councilmember Wassinger,
Present.
Councilmember Wiesner,
Present.
Councilmember Mack,
Present.
Councilmember Goebel.
Present.
Mayor, all city council members are present.
Thank you, Julie. Guests that are included in staff presentations will be excused from the Ring Central meeting at the conclusion of the agenda item as appropriate. So I'd like to start then by asking for approval of the agenda, or if there are any changes, I'd entertain those at this time. I'm not seeing any, so we will move forward with our agenda. What?
Staff has a recommendation.
Well, I thought we were going to take that at the consent agenda time.
Okay, we can do it then.
Okay. Okay. We'll leave the agenda as presented at this time and move on, I think, to the item number 2 on the agenda, presentations and honors. This evening, our Fire Chief Merrill has an employee recognition, and I believe he'll do a short acknowledgement and potential presentation of the actual fleece at a later date. Chief Merrill?
Thanks, Mayor. Good evening, Council. That's true. Due to a scheduling conflict, Cameron could not be here this evening, and at some later date, you'll be able to present the fleece to him. Just a little bit about Cameron. He's been very active with us since he hired on 10 years ago. He's a certified firefighter 1 and a firefighter 2. He's a fire instructor 1 and 2 that's internationally certified. He's an internationally certified driver operator. He's a certified fire officer 1. He's been very busy to get a certification for his fire officer 2. He is a fire inspector by the International Code Council, and he is one of our prime CPR instructors, so that when we do CPR for the citizens of the city, he's one of our prime instructors. He got promoted to captain in October of this year. He's a very dedicated employee to the city, and he is truly a pleasure to have here with the department. And I look forward to many more years with Cameron being part of the organization. So, Mayor, at a later date, he will get with you to get his fleece. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you to Cameron for 10 years, and hope we get a lot more. We'll move on then to item number 3, citizen comment period. Now is when citizens may comment on subjects of interest. Public comment may be submitted electronically to the city clerk at jlindsay@oakharbor.org or by calling 360-279-4539 after 5 p.m. on the Friday preceding the meeting and prior to the meeting. To ensure comments are recorded properly, please state your name clearly when leaving a message, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And it's my understanding we've received no public comment then for this meeting. So now we will move on to the consent agenda. And staff has presented the listed consent agenda items A through, looks like N. We have several items on the consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Munns noted there is a typographical error for the date in the suggested motion for item number 4M on the consent agenda. The date is correct in the attachment that we're asking for approval. I would like to recognize 2 appointees for being on this call, and I think we may have joining us or with us tonight Jamie Pagel, whose appointment to the Marina Advisory Committee, and that's item number 4D, and Therese Kingsbury, whose reappointment to the Arts Commission is item number 4F. I'd like to thank them for their service to the community and for participating on these boards, and I'd like to thank all of our many volunteers that we have. So I think at this time, staff would like to move consent agenda item 4G. It's my understanding that the Microsoft Select agreement renewal, it needs to be placed under contracts and agreements as item number 8C to be talked about later in our agenda. And so then I'll ask for any questions or questions about any of the other consent agenda items. Now we can remove and discuss if you'd like, or if not, they'll be approved as they've been presented. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions on those, so the consent is approved. And at this point, then, we'll move on to mayor comments. And I do have several comments this evening. On December 8th, Governor Inslee announced a 3-week extension of the state's current restrictions. I'm sure that's no secret to anybody here, which will now be in place until January 4th, 2021. The 3-week extension of statewide restrictions come as the state's healthcare system nears dangerous occupancy levels. More information can be found on the state's website dedicated to COVID-19, coronavirus.wa.gov. Governor Inslee also announced an extension of 26 proclamations relating to COVID-19. These proclamations cover a variety of topics and extensions, and they were approved by the legislature. Most of the proclamations were extended until later this month, and most proclamations, including the proclamation regarding the Open Public Meetings Act and Public Records Act, were extended through January 19th of 2021. In addition to the extension of restrictions, Island County Public Health is strongly advising all residents to follow the guidance listed below in order to protect our community. Avoid indoor gatherings with people outside of your household. This includes modifying or canceling holiday plans with extended family and friends. Avoid visiting non-essential indoor spaces. Mask in all indoor spaces where you encounter people outside of your household. If you are over 65, do not go into indoor spaces where people are unmasked. Wash and sanitize your hands and the hands of children you care for often. Stay home if you are sick or were recently exposed to someone with COVID-19. We need all residents of Island County to do their part in following these measures in order to limit the transmission in our county and reduce the burden on our healthcare system. At this time, city facilities remain open, but we would like to remind the community of our many options to conduct business and connect with staff virtually. Electronic bill pay, virtual development application meetings, virtual boards and commission meetings, and an online comment portal are just a few of the ways we have adapted to meet the needs of the community during this pandemic. More details and resources about the local impact of COVID-19 can be found on our website. Working Washington grant program at his press conference of December 8th, Governor Inslee announced an additional $50 million in economic support to assist industries and workers impacted by the pandemic. This funding will go directly to businesses and eligible nonprofit organizations through round 3 of the Working Washington grants managed by the Department of Commerce. These grants are prioritized for small businesses with annual revenues of $5 million or less in 2019 and businesses in the sectors that are most impacted by the recent public health measures or sectors that have experienced significant cumulative impacts. Examples include full-service restaurants, fitness centers, bowling alleys, and music and event venues. The state's round 3 priority application window closed at 5 p.m. December 11. According to the state, businesses submitting applications after that time may receive consideration should funding remain after the priority review round is completed. Successful applicants will be notified by December 31. The city received an anonymous comment in our City Hall comment box, which I found in checking the box on December 10th. The comment was addressed to the City Council, and I have forwarded it to the Council for their review. The city welcomes comments from employees and members of the public alike. The comment box is located in the lobby of the City Hall. Comments may be signed or can be made anonymously. I will tell you that I did attend a County Board of Health meeting today. It was a long meeting, but the Whidbey Health has received a vaccine, and it was one of only 18 areas in the state of Washington to receive that first round of vaccines. They got it today. They intend to start doing vaccinations on Thursday. So they're moving quickly. They expect to get the second vaccine This first one is from Pfizer. It is the one that needs to be kept the coldest. They have the facility to handle that, and so they're moving ahead, and we're ahead of many areas in other areas in the state because of the fact that we were able to get to phase 3 when we did, and because our health department and our Whidbey Health organization and the many people involved in that process have worked so hard to get us there. So that's a win. We're going to be able to get started ahead of some people, and that's a positive. So you'll hear much more about that. And there's, in answer to your question about the amount of vaccines and or the additional things you can get on the Island County Board of Health site and find that information. So with that, I'll stop and turn to council for council comments. Okay, not seeing any council comments. We'll turn to the city administrator.
Yeah, I just want to say happy holidays, and I'll have more comments in my administrator's report tomorrow. Thank you.
So we will then move on to item number 6A on our agenda under public hearings and meetings. Ordinance number 1918, budget amendment for the 2019-2020 biennial budget. At this time, I will open the public meeting on ordinance number 1918 and ask if we have received any comments from the public, from our city clerk.
Mayor, the city published a legal notice for this hearing in the Whidbey News Times. Those wishing to comment on this item could do so electronically via the city website, on a comment form, or by email or voicemail to myself, the city clerk. No comments were received.
Okay. Having received no comments, then the public hearing is closed, and I'll turn it over to our Finance Director, David Golden, for the staff presentation. David?
Well, good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to introduce Tally Boyer, Staff Accountant, who will be presenting this item.
Good evening and happy holidays. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if I'm correct, can you all see my presentation?
Yes,
Okay.
we can.
Good evening. I will be presenting ordinance number 1918, budget amendment number 6 to the 2019-2020 budget. This amendment covers 3 items, all related to grants. The first is for development services. The city was awarded a grant from the Department of Ecology for $22,400 for the review of the Shoreline Master Program. A contract in the amount of $22,000 was executed with Coastal Geologic Services to perform the geological analysis associated with the program. The amendment is for $22,000, as that is the amount of the grant and the contract that Development Services anticipates utilizing in 2020. The second item is also for Development Services. The city was awarded a grant from the Department of Commerce to address housing affordability. Development Services anticipates utilizing $48,000 of the $80,000 available funds in 2020. A contract was executed with LDC Inc. to assist the city in the preparation of the Housing Action Plan. We anticipate spending $48,000 of the $79,500 contract in 2020. The third item is for the CARES grants. The city budgeted the first original CARES funding in the general fund and the shop facility fund. This is the amount, the $689,000 that came directly from the Department of Commerce. and the $366,000 from Island County. And that was budgeted split between the general fund and the shop facility fund, as we anticipated that the bulk of the spending would be in these two funds. The second award is being budgeted in the shop facility fund, as the majority of it was to be used for the modular for the engineering staff. Now that we have complete information of where the original funds were spent, we are realigning the budget of the original award to match where the funds were spent. That is represented in this column. The amount of the budget amendment is $414,550, as it is an increase to the budgets of every one of these funds: the general fund, senior center, marina, equipment repair, technology, shop facility. The recommended action is that we hold a public hearing on ordinance number 1918 and move to adopt ordinance number 1918, budget amendment number 6, amending the 2019-2020 biennial budget. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I guess we'll first make sure that we don't have any input from anybody thus far. Okay. Okay. We're not seeing any input from the public here. We're trying to make sure that we don't have any. We'll turn to council, I think, at this time. Any questions? Pretty straightforward. Turn then to ask for actions, motions. Got Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt ordinance number 1918.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 1918. Motion by Councilor Heisen, second by Councilor Wiesner. Seeing no other input or questions, all in favor, raise your hand. Okay, that passes unanimously. That means none opposed. Thank you. We will now move on to our next item, which is 6B, ordinance number 1919, 2020 Comprehensive Plan Amendment. And at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing on ordinance number 1919 and ask our city clerk if we did receive any comments.
Mayor, we did not receive any comments. Again, we published this as a legal notice for this hearing in the Whidbey News-Times. Those who wish to comment could do so electronically via the city website comment form, by email or voicemail to the city clerk, and no comments were received.
Thank you, Julie. So staff is actually recommending that the public hearing be continued to January 5th, 2021, to that council meeting on that date. So in order to continue that, I assume we'll need a motion to do that. Am I correct on that?
Yes, that's
So-
correct, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Weed. So Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to move that we continue the public meeting for the, lost it. ordinance number 1919
Yes.
until the next first meeting in January, correct?
Yes. So we have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue the ordinance number 1919 to the first meeting in January, which is January 5th. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem, second by Councilor Wassinger. Any other input or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. How we doing? Looks like we have six. Six yes. All opposed, raise your hand. Okay, not seeing any opposed. So, Councilor Heisen? Did,
I'm a yes. Sorry, I was a little slow on the draw there.
okay, I think that passes then. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll then move on to item number 7, ordinances and resolutions. Ordinance number 1917, adopting the 2021-2022 final budget. The budget was presented over the course of several meetings and workshops, with a public hearing held on December 1 of 2020. Staff has responded to the feedback provided by the council in presenting this final 2021-2022 biennial budget. But I'd like to turn it now at this time to our Finance Director, David Goldman, for that presentation. David?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, this is the 21-22 biennial budget adoption item. So just to recap the budget adjustments that were made at the last council meeting on December 1st. These are the adjustments to the city council department regarding travel. $600 or exactly half of the amount that was budgeted in in-state travel was reduced, leaving $600 left in 21. And the remaining $4,500 that was in the out-of-state travel line item was also reduced to zero. So that, in conjunction with the $4,500 that was cut back on November 17th, makes that line zero for 21. The next item was adding $100,000 for permitting software that was discussed at our last meeting. That'll be in the Development Services Department. And then this was a correction to funds that were added to the Streets Fund for the 4th streets position. They were inadvertently added. They weren't needed. They were already budgeted. So it was decided at the last meeting to just take those funds out that weren't needed for a net zero change in that particular area of the Streets Fund. So this is a bit of a description of the fund balance charts that we've been showing over the last few meetings. The charts on the following 2 pages, they include the general fund and the stabilization funds. The beginning fund balance at the top includes the total fund balance, includes unspendable and restricted reserves, and the unreserved fund balance that was there at the beginning of the fiscal year. The revenues or expenditures are next. And then after them, you have the change in fund balance line, which is basically the difference between the revenues and expenditures. The ending fund balance is the beginning fund balance plus the change in fund balance. If the change is positive, the ending fund balance goes up. If the change is negative, the ending fund balance goes down. And then we break down the ending fund balance into its component parts. We have the unspendable and restricted part per the Government Accounting Standards Board accounting rules. We have reserves, which include the 16.67% operating policy and the 10% stabilization fund. And then we have the unreserved fund balance, and the budgeted fund balance that's included in the budget is part of that unreserved fund balance. So just to go over the slides again, this is the slide we showed at the December 1st meeting. You can see here per the budget, we have this circled and in yellow. This was the amount of unreserved fund balance that we were expecting to see at the end of this year, but due to better than expected results, it looks like our ending fund balance, our unreserved fund balance will actually be a little bit higher. You can see the stabilization fund amounts right here that I talked about in the previous slide. And then you could see the operating policy, the 16.67% that I also talked about on the other slide. And then here you can see some other reserves that the general fund has as well. So with the reductions that we talked about 2 weeks ago, we were looking at having fund balance, or sorry, the unreserved portion of fund balance be at $2.531 million at the end of 22, which was relatively close to what we were expecting at the end of this year. With the changes I discussed earlier, that number goes down a bit. It mostly goes down because we added $100,000 for the permitting software, which was offset slightly by some of the other reductions we talked about as well. So that would bring a number of unreserved fund balance at the end of 22 to $2.4 million. And this line here, the change in fund balance, you can see that per the budget, we're including $1.161 million use of fund balance and about $400,000 use of fund balance in 22. So that is the recap, and we are available to field any questions you may have.
Okay, we're not seeing any other questions from the public, right? No? Okay, then we will turn to council. See if we've got questions. I know that you've seen a lot of these numbers more than once now before. Any input or questions? David is patiently waiting. Okay, any motions or any action? So I can't see council. Oh, I guess I can, yes. I do now see Councillor Wassinger.
Okay, I'm here. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you to staff and everybody for working on the budget so hard the last few months, and more so than that, even behind the scenes. Thank you for making the changes and presenting us with a final budget that we asked for after last meeting. I appreciate adding and subtracting all of our desires and hopes for the budget. If there's no other comments, if there are, I'm happy to wait. But I will go ahead now, I guess, and make the motion to adopt ordinance number 1917, adopting the 2021-2022 final budget.
Second.
So we have a motion to adopt ordinance number 1917, the 2021-2022 biennial budget. Motion by Councillor Wassinger, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Seeing no other questions or input, all in favor, please raise your hand. Looks like that passes unanimously. Well, I too would like to thank council for your patience, your input, your help, and getting and staff especially for a lot of patience and input and help to get this concluded. Thank you very much. We will then move on to item number 8A, professional services agreement with Semrau Engineering and Surveying for consulting engineering services. Amendment number 5, and I'll turn it over to our city engineer, Jim Bridges.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is just an agreement to extend Mr. Simrau's contract another year and to include $80,000 for services. He currently has about $40,000 left of the original of the last amendment. I think I might have misspoke. It's $60,000 plus the $40,000, so it's going to be a total going forward for 2021 of $100,000. So, Mr. Simrau, for those listening at home, he provides development review services for the engineering department on all development. He does a fantastic job for us, and so this is an amendment to continue those services. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Jim. Make sure we haven't got any input. That doesn't look like it from our public. So we'll turn to council for questions or input or motions. Mayor Pro Tem Munns.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me get my hand down so I don't. Doesn't look like there's any questions. It's pretty straightforward. We've used this service. Our engineering department seems to be happy with what they need him to do. And so I would like to move to authorize the mayor to sign amendment number 05 for the professional services agreement with Cimarron Engineering and Surveying that changes the agreement end date from December 31st, 2020 to December 31st, 2021 and increase the contractual amount by $60,000.
Second.
So we've got a motion and a second. The motion reads exactly like the recommended action in our packet. A motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Munns, second by Councillor Heisen. Any other input or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. So I won't ask for any opposition because it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So we'll move on to item number 8B, bid award SCBA equipment. And it looks like we've got a duo potentially here with our Fire Chief Merrill and Sandra Place from Public Works for presenting here.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Chief Merrill and I will be presenting this item together. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. So just a quick reminder about the workshop that we had on September 23rd on this item, that our current SCBA's purchased in 2005. They're now up, their lifespan is now up, and they're not permitted to be upgraded, so we went out for a bid. Funds have been set aside in the equipment rental replacement program. And unfortunately, we applied for the FEMA Assistance Firefighters Grant, but we were not awarded the grant. So we decided to proceed on, and we did the formal bid as required. Staff solicited bids through the Whitby News Times and the Seattle Daily Journal of Commerce, as well as our website. The original bid due date was on the 26th, but we had quite a few vendors that were interested and they had some questions. So we took their questions, answered them, and sent them out to all of the potential bidders and allowed for some extra additional days for them to be able to turn in their bids. We received 2 sealed bids, one from Curtis and one from Sea Western. And we proceeded to do our evaluation with keeping in mind the Washington State bid book, where we're looking to do the award to the lowest responsible bidder, who is most advantageous to the city. And if we don't award to the lowest bidder, document the reasons and actions in our city council minutes. Per our city code, we are to do a bid evaluation, which was also included in the specifications, so the vendors knew exactly what we were going to base our criteria on. And it should include the life cycle costs, inspection, testing, and any other items that may increase the cost over time. So we used a 5-factor in evaluation. We did an in-person interview with the fire department staff. I had the opportunity to go over there and they showed me physically what their concerns and their needs were. Second, we went through the 2 bid proposals, both the fire department and myself in purchasing. We reviewed the proposal evaluation forms that were included in the bid packet, and the fire department staff completed evaluation forms and also went above and beyond by providing an additional matrix. That's number 4. And we evaluated the total cost, including those life cycle costs that we talked about just a slide ago. Now I'm going to turn the time over to Chief Merrill, and he's going to talk to you about why we're proposing to take the higher of the 2 bids.
Thanks, Sandra. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As Sandra said, we've been looking at these packs for quite a while. We've looked both at the MSA and the Scott pack. While they both do meet the NFPA standards, we have found some issues that are concerning to us with the MSA pack. And then we'll also look at what the C Western pack is, or the Scott. As you may know by reading the information, we have used the Scott pack for the last 15 years. All of our equipment is set up for the Scott pack as far as our air compressor and our revolve air refilling systems. A couple things that we found about the MSA over a period of time was that the air tank actually pops out of the harness. There's no locking device. There's just a strap that goes around the tank. So if you hit the bottom of the bottle of the SCBA, the bottle will actually dislodge from the tank or from the pack itself. It doesn't secure down as well as the Scott does. The Scott actually locks into the bracketing, and there's a double release in order to release the bottle from the pack. Also, something we found on the MSA, that as you're wearing the pack, as the pack starts to wear a little bit, the shoulder straps predominantly will just loosen up, and the pack gets very loose on your back. It doesn't stay with the body as well as it should. One of the safety items that we found, while the pack does meet the NFPA requirements, is that the air hose on the second stage regulator, there's a high pressure regulator in the first stage, and then that reduces the air pressure down to the breathing air that goes to the mask. That hose is actually soft enough that you can put enough pressure on it to actually stop the flow of air. We've got a picture that shows it being kinked over. As you can see in this picture here, the picture on the left is the Scott pack, and you can see that we cannot pinch it. The picture on the right actually shows the airline that you can actually pinch that air and stop the flow of air to the regulator. Another issue that we have with the MSA pack is the size of the bypass valve can actually open up. You can hit an item and you open up the bypass valve. So those are some current concerns that we had. We do currently use the Scott. We've used it for the last 15 years. We are totally familiar with the packs and the way they operate. When we look at the different bid proposals, MSA provided no exceptions. When we looked at the Scott packs, in the options that we wanted, Scott currently doesn't have a CBRN, which has to do with chemical, biological, radioactive, and nuclear adapter. When we talk about the voice amplifier, the Scott pack has a dual speaking diaphragm, so that when you speak out of the mask, the voice comes out of both sides of the mask. The Scott, or the MSA, I'm sorry, uses a transmitter on the left breast pocket, and that will actually pick up the sound of breathing. If you're coughing, anything like that, it makes the sound louder. We looked at the evaluation form. Both of the packs meet or exceed the requirements that we set up, but about 80% of our department would like to see us remain with the Scotts due to the design, the fit, and the advantage of the familiarity with the pack and the way the system operates. MSA comes with a 15-year warranty. Scott comes with a lifetime warranty with no additional costs for testing. The masks have to be tested on an annual basis with the MSA. The Scotts, because there are no moving pieces inside of the mask itself, no longer are required to have a flow test done on them. So that's going to save us some money over the lifetime. It's about $25 to $30 per mask, of which we have 50 every year to have that system tested. We'd have to bring a technician up and do the flow testing on that. We still do a fit test on all of our personnel on an annual basis, which is required by NFPA to make sure that the mask does fit our face properly. Go ahead, Sandra. And so we can see what the budgeted amount was $350,000, what we anticipated back in 2005 when we bought our original packs. We have set aside $364,000, both for the masks, the air compressor, and our revolvers. At this point, we're not asking to replace the compressor. It's still working perfectly, as are both of our revolver test or filling stations. The replacement amount is $288,000, which is $61,000 than what we have already set aside for those packs. So when we looked at all the factors, we're proposing to award the bid to the most advantageous bidder, which is C Western, in the amount of $288,604.55.
Okay, thank you, Chief, and thank you, Sandra. We're not getting any.
Can I say one thing, Mayor?
You bet, Chief. Go ahead.
Before we get to questions, I just want to let the council know how much work Sandra Place did on this. She spent hours going back and forth with the vendors and putting all this together. And she needs kudos for all the work she did because she was just a super help for us. So I want to thank Sandra to the public because she did a fabulous job.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay. Thanks to both of you, and a special thanks to Sandra. Nice job. We'll turn it to Councillor Wassinger.
Yes, thank you. Also thank you, Chief, and thank you, Sandra. I feel like you guys, Sandra, you always do a great job on equipment needs for us, vehicles, everything. So thank you also for all the work. This is pretty straightforward. I do want to say, as a council member that has been in a training fire with the fire department, and I'll say that an anonymous source told my husband recently that I was the toughest current council member that has been inside of a training fire. So thank you. But I will say it is something else. And these packs are so important and such detail in them. It's just something that if you've never put one on, if you've never had to breathe through one, you just don't know. You just don't appreciate what goes into that piece of equipment. I mean, there's so much that's so important to a fireman. But obviously this is at the top of the list, along with the fire suit and the boots and the whole getup. But this is one of those things that if the firemen and women feel safer with this particular pack, then I support it 100%. And thanks, Chief, for all the work that you do and all your firemen and women out there. I appreciate it. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wassinger. Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to commend the chief and Sandra and the whole department. I really like the details because you can actually understand when using this equipment why one was better or had features that they liked better. And I think it's really important if they feel safe using something that's very much like their own right now, the Scott, but it really makes a difference instead of just low bid, high bid. I really enjoyed the details because you could really visualize what they need and how confident that the staff seems to be with the reliability and the familiarity of having things where they should be and the fit. So this is marvelous, and thank you for that detailed report.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councillor Wiesner.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I got to tell you, I had on one of their apparatuses and couldn't even see out of the mask. I can remember also the the boys from NAS would be showing up with their nice new gear and how clear their masks were. It was night and day seeing through a new device. So I think it's certainly time and due. So I don't see any other questions coming up. So I'd be more than happy to make the motion to award the bid to Sea Western Firefighting Equipment for self-contained breathing apparatuses for the fire department in the amount of $288,604.55.
Second.
So we've got a motion and second that reads exactly like the recommended action in our packet. Motion by Councillor Wiesner, second by Mayor Pro Tem Munns. Seeing no other input or questions, all in favor, raise your hand. And that passes unanimously. So I won't ask for any negative. Thank you very much, Council, and thanks again to the Chief and Sandra there. We'll then move on to our last item of the evening, which is the item number 4G that we took off the consent agenda. That's Microsoft Select Agreement Renewal. And it looks like we have our Public Works Director, Kathy Rosen. Or maybe that's Sandra. Is that Sandra? Okay.
Yes,
Sandra.
Mayor, I'll be taking that.
Okay.
I'm going to share my screen here. Okay. Our current subscription with Microsoft expires at the end of this month. It's a 3-year subscription. Staff has been working with the Microsoft vendor to determine a not to exceed amount. And that is because we were migrating the new servers over and we weren't quite sure what the new server licensing was going to be. The current vendor unfortunately notified me this morning that they are not going to be on the state contract, which is also called the NASPO contract, in April 1st. They're negotiating and they just don't feel that they're actually going to get it. So I in turn contacted the Department of Enterprise Services and asked them, why would they be doing this change when many of us are in the situation where it's going to be the end of our contracts? And they told me that it's basically they'll be grandfathered in. Any agreement you sign survives the contract. Then I notified the vendor because obviously they probably didn't know that. And the current vendor still did not feel comfortable pricing with the NISPO pricing. So they came back with the King County Directors Association, which is called the KCDA contract. I think you've heard that before. And then, so that brought our contract over the $55,000 that is in your packet up to $60,605. I then tried to explore some other options, and this, of course, is happening all day long. And I asked another of the vendors that is also on the state contracts if they would be willing to price out, and they said that they would need at least 24 hours. They could come in lower. They may not come in lower because they're also in that same situation where all of them are up for renewal in April. And they just don't want to lock in. This is a 3-year contract. And if they propose a price for the first year, they lock in for 3 years. And that's a big deal to them to lock in at a price that they're not for sure that they're going to get in April. So then I brought this to the IT team today, and we suggested to change the motion to enter into a contract with a Microsoft vendor for a 3-year subscription. And we will either be using the KCDA contract, which we have pricing for, or another contract. Hopefully NASPO comes back with an even lower amount. But either way, we won't go over the $60,605 each year for the length of the 3-year subscription of the contract.
So staff is recommending that motion. You can put that back up at when if there's some questions on it. Council, I'll turn to you for questions or input or motions. Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. Sandra, that sounds like one heck of a fire drill that you did today. Thank you for that. I appreciate your diligence.
It definitely was not something I was looking forward to this morning.
You didn't have anything else to do today,
No.
did you? Oh, my goodness. let's see. I'm just looking at this, trying to figure out what the wording for the motion would be. Would the motion be to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract? Is that how I should say
You
it?
should see it on the screen, the suggested motion.
That authorize the mayor is, I think that would be good. Did you hear
Right.
that?
I need to say I move to.
I think the motion could be a motion to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract and then finish the rest of what's on the screen there.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, I forgot that.
Okay, I move to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with a Microsoft vendor for a 3-year subscription to provide the city with software licenses using KCDA contract number 018A or NASPO Value Point software number 061016, in an amount not to exceed $60,605 each year.
Second.
So we've got a motion and a second that reads authorize the mayor to enter into a contract, et cetera, just like it reads on the recommended new motion before you. Motion by Councilor Heisen. I think that second was Mayor Pro Tem Munns? Or was that, okay? Yes, it was. Good. Any other input or questions? Councilor Wassinger, I see you've got your hand up.
Oh, yes, thank you. I was just going to ask, and I support this, but I just wanted to see if Sandra or anyone could just talk a little bit about what this Microsoft software. I know what Microsoft software is, but how important it is to the city. I can imagine that every department's involved. Everyone uses Microsoft software in some shape or form. But I thought maybe if you could just touch on that just for a minute, just for the public to know.
Okay. So the city just doesn't go down to the store and buy a box of Microsoft software because there's also a back end in there. There's also server software. There's the backup software. There's the Office suite that we use, the Office 365. All of that encompasses this agreement. And we are, the pricing is based on how many licenses you have, as well as how many cores are on the servers. And because the city has now upgraded to, we're getting a lot more tech in our servers, as well as our VPN servers. We now have 4 servers. So the cores actually multiplied by 2 because we had 2 first and now we have 4. So all those things come into play when we start to talk about the subscription. But the nice thing about being on a subscription is that when the latest and greatest versions come out, we automatically get those without having to buy them additionally. And there is also other components, such as there's some education components, there's some training components. So it's just a bunch of different things come with it. It's just not putting Windows on a computer. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Wassinger. So we have a motion and a second. And seeing no other questions, all in favor, raise your hand. And that passes unanimously again. So that, I think, concludes our regular business then for the evening. I want to make sure that there is no other item for consideration at this time. I don't see any other hands. I would like to again thank the council for your patience and your wisdom. I'd like to especially thank staff for a very wonderful effort during a very different year. And into the holidays, I wish you all well. Be safe. Enjoy it. Try to get some relaxation, and thank you very much. And from administration and staff, thanks out there to the citizens, and from council also. So, seeing no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? We got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Looks like we're unanimous there again. Thank you very much. Have a good, safe holiday. See you now.
Good night, all.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
See you now.